Welcome back to another home review tour with myself. If you haven't met me, my name is Tash, and today we are doing Justina Blakeney's home. This was actually requested by Sherril, and honestly, thank you very much, Sherril. This is such a cool home. It is very inspiring, and although we have been looking at a lot of really unique homes, I think this is probably the most colourful one that I've done to date. Now, for those of you who do not know who Justina Blakeney is, she is an interior designer, writer, creative, and pretty much everything else that you can think of that is in the creative industry, she pretty much does. She's the founder of Jungalow, which is like a home decor company. It's got home decor, it's got wallpapering, it's got pretty much everything for your home needs, and it's all very bright, colourful, and bohemian styled. So although Justina Blakeney is known for her colourful bohemian look, her home isn't just that. And I think the thing that I really like about this home is that it is extremely transitional and has a lot of It's very eclectic, that's what I'm trying to say. We've got hints of mid-century, we've got Moroccan and Spanish vibes. This is a 1930s Spanish home. She even mentions that, she wants people to come in and feel very welcomed and invited. I think honestly, instead of her trying to create a home that feels soothing, she's trying to create a home that feels inspiring. And we definitely see that with all the gorgeous colours in her home.
Hey AD, I'm Justina Blakeney. Welcome to our home. Come on in.
So the first thing that we see is her living spaces, and these are gorgeous. Initially, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that is a lot of pink. But now that I've had a really good moment to actually look at it, I am in love. Part of the reason that I really like her space is because instead of her going with the basic white walls and then just adding color in, she's really just gone gung-ho and went, I'm doing everything. And seeing her personality, it really works. One of the only things that I could see that I didn't like with her initial description about her living room was the fact that she said that her fireplace was her focal point. Personally, I think she might need to change the color up slightly to make it a bit more of a focal point, because currently, due to everything being pink and obviously just the inserts of her shelving being green, the inserts seem more of a focal point than her fireplace. If I was to change that to make it a little bit more of a focal point, I would probably go a step darker on her actual fireplace with the pinks, just so then it kind of highlights it slightly more, so it actually is more of a focal point. But aside from that, I really like how she's layered textures, how she's got a whole bunch of different types of artwork and decor. You can see that she's really collected things and curated her space over time. The thing that makes this space work, even if it is quite colourful for a lot of people, is that she's quite consistent in her repetition of colours. So she's currently standing on a rug that's got blues, pinks, creams, and yellows, and, well, actually no yellow. What is that? I suppose that's more of grey. I'm going crazy. Anyway, but you can see that echoed throughout the rest of her space. You can see the bluish green couch and the bluish green inserts. You can see the cream being echoed in the other armchairs and in the rug. You can see that the pink is obviously all over the walls. And so even though this is quite a bold color palette, it still feels very consistent. And this echoes outside as well, which I quite like. What she's done with the outside space is that she's found herself a muse, which I talk about a lot, especially when designing a space as a beginner. I personally like trying to find a muse first and then pulling the colors out of that. And she's got these beautiful Moroccan tiles that have all of these colors again. And she's actually echoed that onto the walls through the painting. And because of this, even though her other room is slightly darker, it still feels very consistent with the main living room space because the colors are very similar. And because the colors are very similar, you have this sense of consistency, but because the colors are slightly different, they kind of separate the rooms a little bit. They kind of have their own voice still. It's not like it's just one giant space that's meant to feel completely consistent. She's kind of made one area a little bit of a nook and then the other area the main living space, which I think is great. I love that. I think it's really cool. Even though she's got a bohemian sort of style, it doesn't feel like that stereotypical bohemian style where it's very light, it's very white and natural tones. She's really incorporated a lot more of that color that we see. And I think, you can see that she's very influenced by other cultures. and by other creatives as well. The thing that I really like about what Justina has done here is that she has taken things that may seem like trendy, but she's made it her own. A really great example is the mushroom lamp that shows up for only like a split second. The mushroom lamp has been a huge trend, especially this year, and everyone has pretty much made their own version of it, but they all seem very consistent in the fact that the light pans down. So it lights up the table underneath rather than going up. Whereas the lamp that she's got, the actual light is mostly going up. She still is playing with those trends, but she's really making it her own. And she does this in another occasion as well, which I'll talk about in a second. Personally, I love her repetition in pattern. You may not see it initially, but she actually repeats a lot of lines a lot. It might be because it's kind of trendy and in at the moment, but particularly in her second space, she's got this like, I think it's a lampshade that's up on the wall. You may think, oh, okay, you know, there's no other patterns that look exactly like that. Where is this tying in? And the way it's tying in is actually with the furniture. So the couch that she made, it's got this like fluting with the cane. And so that repeats that line pattern. And again, with the armchairs, it's got this like really long skirt, which I don't think I've ever seen, but it's an interesting embellishment. But again, those are creating those little lines, and it's very subtly ties it all together, which really shows her artistry and her understanding of how to make a space feel consistent and how to tie items in together. Now, I do want to quickly note that she is really truthfully a really great interior designer and artist. Not just as like a willy-nilly thing. The reason I'm saying this is because of her peacock chair. Now, the peacock chair has been around for years. People have made replicas, they've made other renditions of it, and she has made a rendition of her own. What she's done is she's kind of updated it, made it more regal and contemporary. She's still got that high back, which is very common for a peacock chair, and the curved top. But then what she's done is she's opened it up. What the usual peacock chair does is it almost feels a bit enclosing. It's got more tighter arms, whereas arms that she's created, even though it's hard to see, she's actually expanded it out on an angle. It feels much more inviting, but it also feels way, way more elegant and like, what's it? Like advanced, up-leveled, like, oh, well, the word's gone. It doesn't matter anymore. But what I'm trying to say here is that she has taken the peacock chair, she's made it her own. And we don't see this often enough and not celebrated enough, particularly in the design industry, where unfortunately smaller creators and artists will create these beautiful items and then big stores, big designers may go rip them off or get something cheaper that was made from somewhere else that hasn't really like honored the previous design. And I think that she has really found the right balance with that peacock chair, and I really just wanted to mention it because it's a subtle thing that she has just in this really crazy, bright, beautiful space, but it really shows who she is as not only a designer, but as a creative as well. Now, her kitchen is very interesting. I personally don't love it, but there are a lot of things that I really want to point out. Now, let's talk about the things I do love. I love the windows. I love the little black framings. Personally, I really like that style. I like the fact that there's repetition again, but with tiles, and not in the same way that we've seen in the previous rooms. So with her tiles, we've got two types of tiles that we can at least see. We've got her hexagon pinky red tiles, and then we've got these more neutral toned square tiles. And initially you might be going, Tash, they're completely different. They're not the same color, nor are they the same shape. But now, although they don't have the lines or the colors being the same, the thing that they do have is the finish that's the same, and they've got this almost uneven finish that reflects the light really naturally and really beautifully. It really feels a little bit more rustic. By having the same finish, even though these are two completely different looking tiles, it creates a bit of consistency in the space. Now, in terms of the things that I do not like, that pot filler is way too high. I don't know who installed it, and I don't know why they installed it that high, but unless you are cooking for 100 people every day and you need a pot that is about quadruple the size of the pot on the stove, I don't think it needs to be that high. I would say even if it went down maybe 2 tiles, then it would be perfect. But up there, no. I don't know why they did that. Another thing that I'm not a huge fan of is just the cabinetry. The cabinetry is just not my style. It's a little bit too 60s, I think, for me. I personally prefer something that feels a little bit more refined, a little bit more finished, whereas this kind of feels a bit like unfinished, which I think works for her and her style. It's just not my personal preference. I'm also not a huge fan of the flooring, not because of the color, but just because it looks like almost that like 70s vinyl flooring that everyone is now starting to kind of like again. I don't think this is one of those ones for me personally. I don't mind the color. I think I would have just preferred maybe a little bit more pattern to it and not having it be so flat. But I can see why they've done it and I can understand it. It's just not my cup of tea. I do, however, love the fact that she has got so many skylights throughout the house. I want to add my own ones in my own home because they just add so much light and they're great for plant babies. All right, we are onto the master bedroom now. Now this space feels very different to the other spaces because of the color palette. Now there is one thing I'd like to quickly mention that she kind of got a little bit wrong in the tour. She mentioned that instead of her painter using a roller, he used a brush for the lime wash. And with lime wash, you have to apply it with a brush. You cannot do it with a roller. You will not get that effect. But not only that, you need a very particular kind of brush. You cannot use synthetic. Synthetic just brushes it around all weirdly. Lime wash is a very natural product. It doesn't have any bonding agents. So he has to use a natural bristle brush. It's usually very wide. I'll pop a picture up somewhere. But I thought I'd just quickly mention that because lime wash is not easy to work with, let alone on the walls, but also on the ceiling. So I'm shocked they were able to do that on the ceiling because usually a recommendation would be to not put it on the ceiling, but I love that they tried for it and I love that it worked for them. I think because of that, going with the smaller light fixture up the top was a good idea. I think it is a bit odd, but it's okay. I don't mind it. I think it really reflects back down onto the bed head that they said was vintage. Again, the bed head's not really my style. I love the fact that they've upcycled, they've found something that they really like. And I think I like the fact that it is completely contrasting the wall. The wall has almost this underwater sort of vibe where you feel like you're in the pool and you can see up above and all like the water is moving all funny. This provides a bit of structure with more harsher lines. So it really stands out against the wall. If you guys have been on this channel before, you guys know that I love talking about finding local artists and finding creators that you love and really putting them into your home. And the fact that she has this gorgeous artwork from her great late uncle, that is so cool. And it's such an interesting piece as well. It really just goes to show that her entire family must be creatives. I love it because it is so unique. It's so hard to find unique pieces of paintings and artwork, especially at an affordable price. So to have something like this that has a lot of meaning brought down throughout the family, it's just gorgeous. And it looks like it was just made for that room. I do question whether or not they used this first as inspiration for the rest of the space because the blues and greens that they've got there are almost identical to the rest of the room, which I think is so cool. And another thing that I do want to quickly mention is that she has got more repetition in the space, and I do want to see if you guys can pick out if there are any other forms of repetition here. But the way that I've found repetition here is through the lines again. It's very subtle. She's got it with her armchair, her rug, and her lampshade. So her lampshade is the pleated lampshade, which is very, very popular at the moment. I've even got one myself. I love them. Honestly, her lamps, so cool. Like, just real quick tangent. If you want to find cool old vintage lampshades, just go on Facebook Marketplace. That's where I find all mine. And you just get some really awesome ones. I reckon she might have done that herself here. Anyhow, but with the repetition with the lines, you've got the pleating of the lampshade. The armchair has got the cane again. And then in the rug that is underneath the bed, it's got these jagged kind of lines. That just makes the space feel very consistent, and it's very jarring against all of this cloudy lime wash sort of effect. And I think it definitely needs it because of how dreamscapey it almost feels. You gotta bring it back down to earth a little bit. But yeah, such a cool space. And honestly, I love the fact that she went all the way to the ceiling with the lime wash. It is extremely cocooning. I've done it in my own space as well. I've painted the ceiling green and it's so cool. This bathroom is so cool.
Welcome to my spa.
I love the fact that they probably didn't update it too much. Like, they didn't change the layout to like the way that like a 60s or 70s style bathroom would have been laid out. I think it's kind of like a quirky sort of shape, which they've really lent into, which is pretty cool. And the colors and the layering that has gone on here is just amazing. One thing that I'd like to mention again is the tiles. These tiles reflect back to the kitchen. We often see that like with kitchens and bathrooms, they've always got the same tiles to create repetition, especially in new homes. This is another way of doing it. They have used the same type of tile effect or finish, but they've just changed the colors and the shape, and now it feels like its own space again. And I just love the green. The green is just, I love green. A couple of those green tiles have that yellowish tone to them, and that ties in almost perfectly with the wallpaper, which I know people don't usually wallpaper their bathrooms, especially when it's like, you know, quite modern. But I love this. This is so cool. It feels very her. I think she's really good at having contrasting elements play nicely together. So with these green linear tiles, she's got square floor tiles that are pink. And that pink really warms up the space again and really plays nicely with the gold. But then it also plays really lovely with all of the timber elements, particularly with those gorgeous vintage doors that have that bone inlay. And that bone inlay then pairs back in again with all the white that's in the room, which, hey, it isn't much, but it's just those subtle differences and those subtleties that really tie items back to each other, which I think she's really nailed it on the head with that. Overall, Justina Blakeney has a really quirky, really fun design sort of style. She really likes to play with different textures and elements and colors, but she has a bit of consistency throughout her work. She really likes her pinks and warmer tones, but then sometimes she'll just add those dashes of green and other fun colors in that really just create a little bit more contrast in a space. She really knows how to layer textures and textiles extremely well. Obviously she does, it's her job. Like, I would be concerned if she couldn't. The way that she does it is in a manner that is quite subtle. It's not as obvious as what some designers may do. And I think that by her doing that, it makes a space feel a lot more relaxed. It makes a space feel a little bit more carefree, and it does feel extremely welcoming. I think she has done that extremely well. And would I live in this house? Hell yes, I would. I think this is a space that's just filled with inspiration. It's a space for a creative, and she's obviously a very creative person that wants to be inspired every day. I think the thing that she's done so well is she could take everything with her to the next place and it would still feel like home for her. She's very good at curating a space for herself and space that will just really bring a smile to her face, and that's all that really matters. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video and my little breakdown on Justina Blakeney's home. If you do have any other recommendations on who I should do next, make sure you do leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. And if you'd like to watch a couple more of these home breakdowns, make sure you go ahead and click on that playlist at the end of this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next video.